We help businesses better manage redundancies. We sell programs to employers that are going to make someone redundant. And those programs include coaching, a community, content and learnings, events, workshops. And essentially, we're giving people the opportunity through that career transition to bounce back faster.
Hello and welcome to the Reflective Impact Entrepreneurs, the show that explores the stories of founders who listen, experiment and reflect as they build ventures that do good and do well. I'm Umi, and in each episode we meet some of those founders. Today I'm joined by Astrid from the Hustle Factory. For listeners who may not know you yet, please introduce yourself and share what's the one thing you're trying to change and why do we need the Hustle Factory in the world now?
Hi, Umi. Thanks for having me. I'm the co-founder of the Hustle Factory. What we do is that we help businesses better manage redundancies. So we're in practical terms, we sell programs to employers that are going to make someone redundant. And those programs include coaching, a community, content and learnings, events, workshops. And essentially, we're giving people the opportunity through that career transition to bounce back faster. But we're also working really closely with businesses to have an impact on them, their reputation, how they manage their legal risks, how they manage employee retention. And on a macro level, we want to make unemployment something that we talk less of.
Great. And can you paint a picture for the listeners? What was happening around you around the time this problem became impossible to ignore?
Yeah, I think it's a long journey from where I started to where I am now. But in a nutshell, if I can, I've been made redundant 4 times in my life for different reasons at different ages. And I burnt out at the end of 2020, probably like a lot of people during COVID. And this led me to a month of taking care of myself. And I was lucky enough that at the time I was made redundant in a kind way. I was given gardening leave. I had money sitting in a bank account, and I took that money and thought I have to do something with this and not just let it sit. And I got myself a careers coach who's now my co-founder. I got a sports coach, I got a therapist, and I got a full-time childcare person and this was all for just 1 month. And I think that is what brought me to thinking about the Hustle Factory and thinking about career transitions in a really holistic way. And I think that's where what we're doing is really different to what's out there, because you're not going to be able to evolve and transition in your career if the rest of your life isn't okay. That was probably the beginning of the Hustle Factory. Now, after that, I still got another job. I also got made redundant. And that was the pinpoint where I thought, okay, I'm going to stop relying on other people to pay my bills. I'm going to make a difference. I wanted to help in some way, and I didn't realize I was building something impactful until a few years later. And until actually we were raising money and someone said to me, well, you're in the impact area. And I was like, am I impact? So that kind of opened my eyes, and somehow my entire career, and I've got a very squiggly one, brought me to this place where I want to make sure that people are able to bounce back faster when they're being made redundant. And maybe it's not a redundancy. Maybe they've chosen to change career paths. Maybe they've been caring for someone. They're struggling to going back to work. But it's that piece around transitioning and going from one place in your career to another. Also, redundancies today, I was born in the 80s. My generation, redundancies have become more of a norm than the generations before. You used to be able to get a job and just go up the ladder. That doesn't really happen anymore. People have on average 11 jobs in their career, which to me is crazy. But if we can make sure that all those transitions are done properly, then the future of work will be a better place.
Yeah, that's lovely the way that you reflect back on the change that's happened just within whatever, like 20, 30, 40 years, right? How long has it been from like the idea or even starting Hustle Factory to now?
Yeah. So idea, I'm going to say 5 years ago.
Hmm.
We started trading 2.5 years ago. Um, and we actually started B2C, which was my biggest learning curve. I thought that people would see the interest in investing in themselves, and actually very quickly realized that the onus shouldn't be on them. It should probably be on businesses to support people in that transition. And it took us 6 months, a lot of marketing spend to realize that we needed to pivot. Um, and we very quickly went on to B2B. Now, we still do a bit of B2C because our reputation has made it that people that are looking for a careers coach or they're looking for a career transition, they'll come and find us. But most of our work comes through B2B. We've been trading 2.5 years. We've been doing B2B for probably just under 2 years.
Wow. So you've shared the moment it became impossible to ignore. And I'd just love to kind of explore a little bit around how you started to tune in. And you mentioned that there was some lived experience in there whilst you were exploring and developing the Hustle Factory.
I invested first in myself as a person on a personal level. I made sure that my body was happy and I was exercising. I made sure that I was talking to a therapist. There was a lot of things happening at the time that made everything harder. My mother was very sick. It was COVID. I was working with a really tricky client. So it wasn't just the job that didn't work. And I think that that's what people tend to forget when
Hmm.
they're in these moments. Um, Meeting my careers coach, who's now my co-founder, was probably the biggest decision maker in moving forward for this. Actually, she came to me about a year later and, she said, "Oh, I've got an idea, but I don't know if it could work." But I've started businesses in the past, and what I love doing is building teams and building things. I come from a very creative background. And she came to me and said, "I think you'd be really good at this. Want to give it a go?" And from there started figuring out what works. We did so many iterations of what we're trying to do, and we're still going through them, right? I think you never stop. My mum, she went from being a consultant in the financial world to being an architect when she was 45. And I think that was probably in the back of my head for a really long time. And because I grew up with that, it was the norm that you can change career. You don't have to stick to something. You can be really happy in one thing and still be happy in the next. It's okay to do that. We only have one life. Let's make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that your co-founder, came to you, but that you used to work with her through that period, and and hats off to your mum to make that transition.
Mm.
I want to just get a little bit more into the pivot. Could you um, explain to the listeners a little more around what were the signals that made you change?
In terms of testing and iterations, we've done a lot. So as we said, start B2C. We had raised money to start the business. And I think that was the first real thing where we thought, we really hesitated on raising cash because we didn't want to owe anyone any money. We didn't want to lose any money for anyone. But I was really lucky that a lot of my family and a lot of my co-founders' ex-clients really believed in us and said, "You should go for this. You should do it, raise some cash." And so we raised a bit of money. And I came from um, an e-commerce B2C background. So I started business about 10 years ago in the furniture space, very straightforward products on a website, you buy them, they get shipped to you. And I came at this from that point of view of selling products and didn't quite realize that we were selling services. Well, I knew I was selling services, but I was just applying product marketing to service marketing, which is so different. And we spent so much of that money on marketing, and that's probably the biggest mistake to date. We got an agency. I'm not sure that a startup should ever spend money on an agency, and fractional is probably better. Or someone part-time that's going to come and work and really believe in what you're doing and be in the brand rather than just servicing your brand. We got one client in 6 months of marketing, and we were spending so much money on Facebook, on Google, on Instagram. And it just, I think, obviously it's been the biggest learning curve, and it's also why we pivoted, but that hurt at the time. Then when we pivoted to B2B, a lot of the testing that we've done has been around how we talk about ourselves. And I think I'm still learning. We haven't reinvented the wheel. This is outplacement, but we're doing it differently. A lot of people don't know what outplacement is. So there's a big educational piece around what we're doing. And I think that's where I'm constantly testing, is around communication and better talk about what we do to better sell. It's probably where I'm learning very fast. I'd also say that when you're pivoting, listen to your gut, listen to the data. The data was easy for us. There was a lot of cash going out, nothing coming in. My gut was saying something's off, something's not working. If people don't want to buy this, then we need to do this differently. And then we actually, when we pivoted, we decided to start raising money on a B2B product. And even then, people were kind of struggling with what we were trying to do, but clients were coming in. And that's when I thought, okay, let's stop raising cash. If the clients are coming in and they're interested, then we're onto something. So I think listening really hard to what's happening and noticing.
Could you tell us a little bit more about outplacement?
Yeah, outplacement it's essentially what we're doing. Some people call it offboarding. So in some countries in Europe, it's a legal ask for businesses to do it. And it's support for employees who are being made redundant. So we really haven't reinvented the wheel. Now, people that are doing it are dinosaurs. The agencies that are out there have been doing this for 30, 40 years, but they haven't really changed how they do it. We are disruptors in that space. We call ourselves a boutique agency, but we're not boutique prices. So one of the biggest issues with outplacement today is that it's really expensive. And so the people that get it are the most senior and execs in a business, when actually they already have an amazing network. They've been working for 20 years. The people that need it are midweight juniors that need that support and that build of confidence. In essence, outplacement is what we do. And it's support for that employee to bounce back faster, paid for their ex-employer.
Oh, that's great. And I just wanted to come back on your current customers. If I'd spent a day with one of your customers before Hustle Factory existed, what does their day look like? And then what's the most friction and frustration they would be having?
So I've never used them myself, but we've done a bit of research and spoken to people that have gone through their programs. There's a pre-COVID and a post-COVID. Pre-COVID, everything happened more in person. Since COVID, everything's been put online, which is fine and what we do. But you get access to group coaching. So you enter a Zoom group and everyone's chatting about their own careers, but you don't get that one-on-one coaching. Obviously, the one-on-one coaching also exists. I think what I've heard about the friction points are the coaches aren't exactly who they would want. The content they already know, and no one is really there to keep them accountable. And when you've lost your job and you're feeling really lonely and really stressed, the last thing you want is just to be dumped into a room with other people. And so where we do that differently is, one, we have a WhatsApp group with everyone that is in our programs that you don't have to interact, but it's there, and we communicate in there. And sometimes people will post like, oh, I've seen a job for this if someone's interested or whatever. We do one-to-one coaching, and our coaches, we have a 30-minute initial call with my co-founder who will decide, or at least suggest, which coach is the best one for that person, and then put them in touch, and they can change coach if they don't like that coach. So we've really tried to make this really personal, and really tailor made. And then we hold your hand. We're there until, we've had, obviously, our programs last X amount of time depending on how many hours of coaching you have, but we have had people stay with us for a year, and in that whole year we've continued, like, how's it going, what are you doing? And success doesn't mean finding another job. Sometimes success just means you found your confidence again and you're going out there and you're meeting people. Or it can also look like you've built your own thing. We want to help people as personally as possible.
Yeah. And I think that's really nice. There's that personalized, customized, tailored approach. And I like also the fact that it's not like a one and done. There's that ongoing service and checking in. I think that's really nice. Um, Listening, tuning in is one thing, but doing something about it is another. What was the first test you tried to see if the Hustle Factory had legs?
Um, I gave access to our content to some friends that were made redundant. And weirdly, it took more convincing with them than it did with anybody else to use our content. I think because it was free and it was just like, oh, she's being kind. But I had a few friends use our content, and I think they found it useful. Um, and that's when I thought, okay, and I knew that they would be the kind of people that would give me honest feedback. And they did.
Hmm.
I think I had 3 people using it at the same time, and that were coming back to me with very similar feedback, which was very helpful.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? What was the last test you ran?
So we had a really interesting moment where our offices were in one of the Westminster libraries. And so I got chatting with the people that worked in the library, and because we were working there and we knew them well, I could see that they had all these free events happening all the time. And I offered pro bono, at the time we offered a return to work workshop. And we opened that up for free, you know, working with whoever wanted to join us. And we had a good 25 people join that workshop, which I thought was really interesting. And that went really well. And then Westminster Libraries asked us for more, which we ended up being paid for, which was really fun. And we ended up working in loads of different libraries around Westminster and doing workshops there. And we ended up getting some clients out of it, which I really didn't expect either. And when we worked with the libraries, we saw their reactions. We saw how our content was impacting them, how it was getting them people. Every single time people would come into the room totally closed off, feeling like they don't want to be there. You could tell that it was a bit of a like, I'm here because I've got nothing else better to do. They were, by the end of it, and it would last 2 to 3 hours, by the end of it, we had a room of people chatting to each other, connecting, networking, sharing each other's contacts because they had a friend that was going to help them. And I think that tiny little pocket of people showed us that, one, the community aspect of what we do is one of the most important things, and that's what
Mm,
we sell into the buyers, into the HRs and managers. And that doesn't exist elsewhere. That's something that we're very good at and that we're the only ones that do it. Through that, we understood that actually feeding that feedback to the buyers and telling people that have bought our products, that person that you fired 6 months ago, they're actually doing really well and they got a job. Actually, that's also really important. And I don't think we would have put 2 and 2 together if we hadn't worked face to face, hand in hand with people that were telling us how they felt.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. So it's almost like the work that you were doing in Westminster Libraries, the signal that you were looking for was that community
Yeah.
piece. You're kind of like testing whether this community piece landed, and that became something which was like unique to your offering, um, to businesses. We've got this community vibe, if you like, lockdown, where
Yeah.
people feel comfortable to share, encourage each other, motivate each other. Um,
And also because 80% of jobs out there are not visible. and the only way that you're going to find them is through your network. And so by being part of that community that is going to share, you're upping your chances of finding that job, right? So
Yeah.
it was that, it was a level before figuring out how we would help people on a bigger scale.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, so, Astrid, what's the next big unknown you're diving into? And when you first recognized it, how did you decide it's a risk worth taking?
There's a few things that we're trying to do that are unknowns at the moment. The first one is that we're trying to create a better platform, and we're not tech at all. It'll happen, but it's taking a lot of effort from us to make that happen. W- One of the biggest unknowns is AI, and I think that is for a lot of people today. I'm a strong believer that AI isn't going to destroy everything. I feel like there's a lot of scaremongering out there. AI is taking everybody's jobs. I don't think that's 100% true, but I think we're trying to understand AI in three different ways. One for our customers, so our buyers, and how what that looks like. We do a lot of outplacement and offboarding, but we've opened up a new branch because of AI shifting jobs, which is internal mobility. So we're helping businesses keep their employees through helping them better retrain and better upskill people. And then we're thinking of AI with our users. So I think that we're never going to be AI experts. So we're looking to partner. There's an amazing business called Ivy. They teach AI to employees of a business to better manage that business. I'd love to do a partnership with them and do that double-sided upskilling and AI piece. And then AI for us. What does AI look like for a business that does coaching, that does lessons, that does a lot of things that people probably feel like they can do by themselves? Um, and it's true. You can use AI to redo your CV. You can use AI to probably do a lot of things for you today. But it's finding that balance. And I think where we're starting to talk a little bit more about is we're actually very human. And
Hmm.
that's the slight unknown is it okay to still be human? um, I'm not anti AI. I just think in the career space we still need to keep that level of humanity and helping humans with emotional intelligence, with understanding where they want to go and what their career is going to look like now that AI has shifted things. And the confidence piece. I don't think AI is ever going to help people gain more confidence and more belief in themselves. They'll hear it, but it never it sounds coming from somebody else that you feel has really seen you. um, so yeah, AI is a subject that we deep dive into very often at the moment.
That tension which is there, which is you've landed on something that's in this space so important, which is the human connection and the
Yeah.
communities that you're building. And but then you've got AI that can kind of bring in other efficiencies, but it's not going to give you that human connection where you need to be able to connect with others or have that conversation with people who've maybe gone through the same thing as you. Um, so I'd be interested to see how you bring that world together, because you kind of get the efficiencies on one side, but then there's working in the real world with humans is messy and that takes time, but that's the beauty of it as well. Um, Experimenting, we've talked about, and it's not just about moving things forwards, it's also knowing when to stop, when to pause, or just let something go. Was there a time that you decided to hold back and you're glad you did?
I'm not very good at holding back. Generally, when I make a decision, I jump with both feet. But I'm very much someone who learns from doing, and I'll pull the plug very fast if it's not working. Um, I think when we decided to raise again, was probably a point where it needed to be done because we needed to see what the reaction was going to be. There's this idea that floats around in the investment world that it takes 9 months to find investment. I'm not sure how true that is, but we gave ourselves 6 months to see, to feel the water, see what people were thinking about us. If I would I do it again, I probably would, because I think it gave me one a great network. I met some really interesting people. I spoke with some incredible angel investors that asked questions that pushed us to do things differently. Um, I think I don't hold back, and I think not holding back has made us capable of just shifting slightly, to the right, to the left, pivoting entirely if you need to, but giving it everything we've got.
I love that the fact that just by saying yes to things, you create these opportunities,
Yeah.
and you can always close those opportunities down
Yeah.
if you need to. But without saying yes, you would have never have known. What's the bravest thing or the bravest decision you've made after starting the Hustle Factory?
It's funny because through in the hustle factory, I feel like most of what I do is it probably is brave. I just do it because that's part of who I am and how I do business. Um, but my personal life also impacts my work life, right? As an entrepreneur. And I moved countries a year ago, and that has had a massive impact on how I work, when I work, where I work, traveling back and forth. And I think at first we were worried that that was going to have an impact on us as a business. But I've landed in Ireland, and I've worked with the Irish government. I've opened up an Irish branch to the Hustle Factory so that we can offer what we do here, but it's also opened up a European office, which means that we're now working with France, which means that we're now tackling the rest of Europe. And it was a big jump on a very personal level, but I think that looking back a year now, it was a bigger jump for my business, and it somehow has made us more fragile but stronger.
And what gave you the confidence to make that call?
You only live once. Might as well give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just move back.
Yeah. And I was also going to ask, how did it feel after taking that decision? But I can just tell by still the excitement and motivation and energy in your voice that I feel good about it.
Yeah, I no regrets. I've decided. I think I've told myself, let's give it 3 years. And if in 3 years it's not working, then we'll have to rethink what we do. My kids are young enough that we can still do that. Um, but I go swimming in the Atlantic every night at the moment. It's lovely. My work life balance has just never been as good, and that's what I wanted for my career at this stage in life.
You've talked about the lessons and changes along the way. How do those reflections translate into the difference your venture is making for people right now? Can you share with the listeners one story of someone whose life has been changed by the Hustle Factory and what changed for them? And I'm happy for you to kind of take us through maybe someone like an employee who's gone on the journey and an employer as well.
Yeah, sure. Um, I think what's really important to understand is that our end users come at different stages of their career. So every single person's journey is going to be very different. How we work is that you can either go onto the path of just looking for work, or you can go onto the path of changing your career, which can then lead on to finding work. But there's two areas in that outplacement program. And um, I think it's a the the impact we make on the end user um, is very human, and it's very visible, is what I can see. Um, they're a bit gloomy, stressed, anxious. They you can tell that they're spending 8 hours a day on their computer looking for work, and actually you're just going to burn out, because looking for work is a job and you don't want to do that 24/7. You're just going to spiral. And where I see that we've made a difference and that we've made an impact on them. Obviously, we've got a few indicators, but on them, on the end user, is they come to the Monday morning motivation and they're happy to be there and they chat. Um, or one of our services is that we have touch points, and you can contact your coach for a 15-minute quick chat. I have an interview tomorrow. Any chance you can give me a hand, or whatever? They use that, and they're making the most of what's being given to them. That, I think, that's the biggest and the earliest signal of impact on our end user. On our buyers and our customers, essentially, it's a really tricky one to measure impact for them, right? Because it's employee retention, minimizing legal risks, and brand reputation. And again, where I see the impact that we do is on the humans in there that are coming to us, and we mainly speak to HRs. They come to us, they buy our programs, and we keep them. This is something we've learned on our journey as well, is to keep those employers in the know of what's happening. Now, everything's confidential. We don't tell them anything specific, but we'll give them they found a job or they started a company. And I can see in those humans that are in a job that have had to fire countless amount of people, there's a sense of happiness for that person. And it's not just making them, they're not just kind of getting rid of their guilt. It's real. I actually genuinely cared about her and I had to let her go. How is she doing? And the impact on that HR manager is huge.
Mm. Every solution creates ripples. Have there been any unintended consequences, good or bad, that taught you something important about how people live with your service?
I think there there's been a few things that have happened where I didn't realize that we were doing that. So someone was given our services by their employer, and then they spoke about us to every single person that they knew at that business, who then asked for our services. So it was great for us, but I don't think that employer had quite put enough money in their budget to deal with all the redundancies asking for outplacement. And in a way, I really wanted to say, just put more money, but that doesn't happen. It's not possible. And what we did is that we brought our price down to bring as many people into the fold, to help as many people as we could. Did that make sense on a business level? I don't know. Financially, I'm not sure that we were any better than if we had like 3 people come through, but I think we were the caring part of us and our business really saw a difference, and that small ripple effect kind of it sometimes you feel good, right, for what you're doing, and that made us feel good, and I think that was just as important as the money coming into the bank.
That's beautiful. That's so nice. Is there like a system rule or a policy change that would 10x your impact and reduce the size of the problem that any session, one-to-one clinic that you release wouldn't be able to do?
So I reached out to B Corp, B Lab, a few weeks back. I would love for outplacement to be something that's in their standards. Now, we've had a really good chat with them, and we're going to try and help them figure out this piece around outplacement, because it's such a big and important one in the future of work. But um, if B Corp recommended outplacement, I'm pretty sure we would see a 10x impact in the future of work. I think the government needs to get involved. I think the generation coming up the ranks have seen the amount of redundancies that happen in somebody's career. And in 10 years, they will be asking, what happens when I'm being made redundant? And that will be written into contracts. And that means that outplacement will become more of a norm and a societal shift. And hopefully, somewhere in those 10 years, the government is going to see that and understand that outplacement needs to lie somewhere. And it can't just be for very big corporations that have a lot of cash.
And is this happening anywhere else in the world that the UK could look at, model
Yeah, I
themselves?
mean, it's France. It's an obligation. Now you have to be a certain amount of employees, and they have to be in it for a certain amount of years, right? But yeah, I mean, job support in France is just on a whole other level. But they have it as an obligation. Denmark, Germany, Spain, I think, touch on it. So there's definitely countries that we can look at and make it work better for sure.
Um, so now we're going to move on to the lightning round. Astrid, what permission slip do you give yourself or your team?
Work anywhere, anytime.
Whose voice are you afraid of losing as you grow?
The risk taker.
The last thing you changed your mind about?
I genuinely don't know.
The most recent thing you learned about your customers?
That they don't want to talk about us to other people.
As you grow, what's the one thing you'll never compromise on?
The human side.
The moment that made you stop and think, this is why we do it.
When our first customer got their job with our help.
When you think of scale, do you picture growing bigger or making the problem smaller?
A combination of both.
If you could whisper something to your earlier self just before you started the Hustle Factory, what would you say?
Keep going. It's going to be okay. And it won't look like what you have in mind right now.
Thank you so much, Astrid, for sharing your story so far. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. Before we wrap, where can people find out more about the Hustle Factory or connect with you?
So our website is www.thehustlefactory.co.uk. If you want to email us, email at hello@thehustlefactory.co.uk. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Astrid Limal, Limal.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a quick 5-star rating or a short review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps more people discover these stories from the reflective impact entrepreneurs who are building ventures that do good and do well.